Welcome to the Accelerated NLP Training Series. My name is Dr. Tad James, and I'll be with you for our entire 20-set series where we explore all of NLP. Now, I've been teaching NLP for quite a while. I think the first time I taught an NLP course was in 1984, and I am a master trainer of NLP, having been certified quite a while back. I think it was 1986 I was certified as a master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming. And what I'm going to do is share with you, as best I can, my best thoughts about the most succinct way to learn NLP. The easiest way to learn NLP, I think the way to really focus in, and this tape series is going to share with you what you need to know in order to be able to come and join us at the Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training that you've chosen to come to. Even if you don't come to an Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training, you'll get a really solid background in NLP. One of the things I want to say is that as you go along with your Accelerated NLP Training Series and these series of programs, I think it's probably a good idea the first time you go through it to take notes. And so you may want to look at your notebook. Although that's not absolutely necessary, at least one of the times that you listen to the tape set, you should go through with your notebook so you could actually take notes. If you're coming to the Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training, I think you probably ought to fill out your test as you go. You can find your test in one of the jackets of the notebook, and I would suggest that you go ahead and pull it out now, because there are questions that are answered in every single program, and I think it's a lot easier if you simply fill in the test as you go, and that'll probably save you a lot of time. We'll set our goals or outcomes on tape number 2 as we listen to the second program in the series, but for now, I want to talk to you a little bit about neuro-linguistic programming. I really love the study of neuro-linguistic programming. It's the study of your mind, and it's the study of how do you successfully recreate excellence. We're going to talk at the practitioner level about a number of things which to me are very, very exciting. I'm intimately involved in the field on a daily basis. I see people doing business consulting on a regular basis. I see people individually in therapy. I see people, I do performance coaching and performance enhancement, and I actually work with clients in education. I see kids on a regular basis. So I'm actively involved in the field doing one-on-one and group work with people on a regular basis and have been doing so for a very, very long time. And so I want to share with you my excitement in the field and as well as the very best of what I know about NLP and how to make it work. And I want to begin, for the very beginning, we're going to actually look at our slides section. So you want to turn near the back of your notebook to where it says slides. And I want to talk a little bit about this training. If you come and take the Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training with us, we're going to spend about 130 hours total in the entire process. The home study, the tapes, and the reading that we've asked you to do will probably take you about 55 hours. There are 20 programs, and each of the 20 programs that you go through is going to be approximately 1 hour. There are some programs that are more than an hour, and no program is less than 50 minutes. So the average will be just about 1 hour per program that you listen to. We're going to ask you to listen to those twice before you come, 3 times if possible, and also to do the reading material. As you fill out your test, we expect that'll take an extra 10 hours or so. Then the live training itself is going to take about between 50 and 55 hours, and the homework during the training will take another 14 hours. So we expect that this training, if you come and take our Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training, will be about 130 hours of NLP training. At the same time, we're going to train you in hypnotherapy and also in timeline therapy. And if you come and take both of those trainings, the training in hypnotherapy and the training in timeline therapy, I think what you'll discover is that you have a really, really good background in all of that. This tape set does not include any information on hypnotherapy and only minimal information on timeline therapy, because what we really want to do is concentrate on neuro-linguistic programming, on NLP, and exactly how NLP works. Now, before we get to that, and we are going to talk about that in our second program, I want to talk about some themes, and they're on slide number 3, on page number 1 of the slide section. Themes I want to talk about now are empowerment. I want to talk a little bit about reasons versus results in your life. I want to talk about perception as projection. I want to tell you why I'm so excited about this field and why it has so much potential for the new millennium and for the future. And I also want to talk about the responsibility of change. And I want to do all of that on this program. So let's get started. the very first question I think that you need to ask yourself, and I think actually your clients will also need to ask themselves, is just exactly which side of the cause and effect equation are you on? Now, I see a lot of people, and I know that perhaps if you're already doing work with clients, you see a lot of people. If you're doing business consulting, if you're doing educational consulting, or if you're doing therapy on an individual basis or in groups, one of the major things that you probably deal with on a regular basis is this issue of cause and effect. And I think the question is, which side of the cause and effect equation are you on? Which side of the cause and effect equation is the client on? Now, there's two sides, and this little equation here says, on slide number 4, says a cause causes a certain effect. And that caret there means simply that the cause causes a certain effect. Now, if you're on the cause side of the equation, of course, you're on the side of the equation where you say, yes, I create all the effects that happen in my life. I create all the effects that happen in my world. I'm responsible, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm responsible for everything I create in a joyous, exciting, loving way. Now, here's the other side of the equation. If I'm on the effect side of the equation, if I'm over there where the E is, which, by the way, is not a comfortable side. By the way, it's also the side that most people in the world are on at this point, but it's not a popular side to be on the cause side. It is a popular side to be on the effect side. So if I'm on the effect side of the equation, what I'm saying is, yes, everything that happens to me, someone else did. Everything that happens to me, I didn't do it myself, someone else did it to me. And I think that this particular notion is going to be very, very useful when you're working with a client or when you're listening to someone else. I think in our field, Richard Bandler says, who's driving the bus? And I think this is really a good question. Who's in charge of the results you produce? Now think about this for just a minute. If you're on the cause side of the equation, then if you look at slide number 5, you're the one who's going to produce results. If you look at the effect side of the equation and you're on the effect side of the equation, you'll have lots of reasons why you didn't get what you wanted. Now, I don't know if you've thought about this, but the reason side of life is not really the best side to be on. It's not the most empowering side to be on for sure. And I want you to know that in a number of years, no matter how many years it is, it will not be the most satisfying side to be on. But the fact is, it's the most prevalent side. It's the side that most of society is on. In fact, I think the great American philosopher Bart Simpson summed it up the best when he said, nobody saw me do it. I didn't do it. Nobody saw me do it. You can't prove anything. Or maybe that was, I think maybe that was one of our presidents along the way. Never mind. Anyway, the effect side of the equation is a side of the equation that we like to be on in most of our societies, whatever part of the world you're from, especially if you're from the U.S. And we have a saying in the United States which goes something like this. If at first you don't succeed, fix the blame fast and sue the SOB for every dime you can get. And of course, the truth is, and we even have ads, and you probably don't, I'm not sure if you have ads like this where you live, but we even have ads on the television where we live that say, if you're injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Find out who did it and come and see these lawyers. Call 1-800-GET-THE-SOB and we'll help you sue them. Well, the thing is, the effect side of the equation is not very satisfying to be on. If you imagine being on the effect equation for the rest of your life and you go out to age 95 and you've never ever had what you wanted in your life, if you've never ever been able to create exactly what you want in your life, then the fact is that's not going to be very satisfying. See, and I know people who are stuck like this. And they say something like, well, I would have been a success except if it hadn't been for, and then they'll name someone. And they'll name the tax people, they'll name a business partner, they'll name an ex-wife, they'll name somebody that did it to them, that they didn't do it, but somebody that did it to them, so it's not their fault. Well, the fact is that if we move the client from the effect side of the equation to the cause side of the equation, we're going to change the client's life. We're totally going to change that client's life. And the fact is, your clients come to you on the effect side of the equation. And your job as a practitioner, and whether you're doing business consulting, education, or therapy, your clients will come to you on the effect side of the equation. And they'll say to you, Tad, I'm at the effect of some cause, which is either inside me or outside me, over which I have no control. So the client will come to us at effect. For example, in therapy, the clients come in at effect and say, it's my wife's fault, or it's the business's fault that I work for. In education, and we have all these disenfranchised learners, people that have learning disability, and they can't learn because they have this thing or that thing, that particular problem. In business, we have a salesperson who can't sell because the economy's down, or we have a salesperson who can't sell because the economy's up, or sideways, or bonds are up, or who knows what. Your job as a practitioner of NLP in any of those cases is to move the client from the effect side of the equation over to the cause side of the equation. You know what happens when you do that? You'll never see him again. Here's an example. I had a business client come to me, but he said, I've got ulcers right now. Can you help me? And I said, sure. So we did some timeline therapy with the client. We did some timeline therapy, very simple timeline therapy. I would say no more than 3 or 4 hours of timeline therapy. He called me 6 weeks later and he said the ulcers had totally disappeared. Now, he went to the doctor 5 days after working with me. And the doctor said there was no trace of the ulcers, whereas the man had come in with bleeding ulcers. Now, here's the thing, and look for a second. If the client is pushing the cause outside themselves, then they're never going to get enough learning or enough information so that you can create something differently, so that you can create what you want. And I say to the client, as long as you're pushing the cause outside yourself, as long as you're putting the cause out there, then you're giving up your power. You're disenfranchising yourself, and you're giving up your power to someone else. Now, I had an example for one guy came to me and he said, I can't make enough money. So we did timeline therapy with him. We changed some of his values and beliefs using timeline therapy, and his income doubled. Now, the question is, who's at cause here? Well, he moves from being at effect to being at cause, and his income goes up dramatically. And that's total empowerment. So I don't really know, by the way, if we create all the bad things that happen to us consciously. But I do know, and I do believe, that the sum total of all of our conscious plus our unconscious choices led us to where we are today. So I think as you begin the practitioner training, and I think this is a good question for all of the clients that you see, I think as you begin the practitioner training, I think you need to ask yourself, am I on the cause side of the equation or the effect side of the equation? Now you see the arrow that we've drawn on slide number 4 and slide number 5. I think that you should retrace that arrow with your pen, giving your unconscious mind, or even put one above, to give your unconscious mind the signal, the sign, the message that you want to be on the cause side of the equation. Now see, in life, either you have results or you have reasons why you didn't get what you want. And quite frankly, one of the things I learned when I was in business consulting and when I owned my own businesses along the way is that you can't take reasons to the bank. I remember one time we were owned a radio station and the economy was particularly bad. And we had, our sales were down. And we went to the bank and we said, well, the economy's bad. And the bank said, we don't care. Now, they were caring people, I'm sure. But the fact is that regardless of whatever reasons we had, what they were looking for was results. Now, if you have reasons in your life, then by all means, you will get people around you who will support you. And they call those support groups. And the fact is that people get together in groups like that. And they say to other people, I'm going to take care of you. And so people who are angry get together in anger groups and they do Gestalt therapy or something like that. And people who are sad get together in sadness groups and maybe they do inner child work. And people who are fearful get together in phobia groups. And maybe people who are guilty get together in, well, you know where they go. And they all get together in different groups. And you'll get a lot of support about how you can't change. But the fact is that neuro-linguistic programming and timeline therapy, about which we're going to talk a little bit here during this series, is about moving yourself from the effect side of the equation to the cause side of the equation. It's about moving you from the effect side to the cause side, and about actually changing the internal representations that occur, changing those things that happen to you so that they are of your creation. Now again, I'm not saying that you created all the horrible bad things that happened to you. What I am saying is that the sum total of all of your choices, both conscious and unconscious choices, have led you to where you are today. And that's the minute you accept that and then move to the cause side of the equation saying, okay, I chose this. I created this, even though it was unconscious. Now I'm done with it. I've really had enough of it, and I want to move on. And so that's what we're talking about. What we're talking about is then embracing the situation such that you can get the learnings, because the learnings are the key here. The learnings are the key. I don't think anybody would consciously create stuff in their life that was horrible. I don't think somebody would consciously create a bad situation in their life. I don't think somebody would consciously create a situation where the government would come after them or people would, do bad things to them. But I honestly do think that we put ourselves in the situations we are by our conscious plus our unconscious choices. And so having known that, having decided that, then you can also choose where you want to be. Okay, now let's turn the page and look at the slide, page number 2, and we're going to look at slide number 7. Which essentially says that perception is projection. And I want to talk a little bit about this issue too. You might also want to refer to page number 7, which is the NLP Communication Model. And what the NLP Communication Model says here is that an external event comes inside our neurology and our filters that we have, delete, distort, and generalize that. And those filters are time, space, matter, and energy, language, memories and decisions, metaprograms, and our values, beliefs, and attitudes. They filter what our experience is, and then we make an internal representation of it. And the internal representation, if you look at slide number 8, is made up of V, A, K, O, and G. That means visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory, which are pictures, sounds, feelings, and then smells and tastes. And then finally, we label those experiences. See the AD off on the left. We label those experiences with our internal dialogue. Now, what you may not be aware of, look at this carefully now. Your internal dialogue, the information the words that you use to label your experiences, constitute suggestions which you give to the unconscious mind. The internal dialogue that you use constitutes suggestions which you give to the unconscious mind on a regular basis. So your point of view, your evaluation of your external experience also makes a difference as to what kind of suggestions you're giving to the unconscious mind. Now here's something else. If you look at slide number 7, you'll notice on the right-hand side, we have about 2 million bits of information per second, which are coming into all channels, through all inputs, into the neurology of our human nervous system. So we get about 2 million bits of information per second, and the human brain on the left-hand side is capable of handling about 134 bits per second. This is according to the Hungarian biologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi in the book Flow. Now, Csikszentmihalyi says that the brain is capable of handling about 134 bits per second, yet we're bombarded by an amazing 2 million or more bits per second of information. Now, I didn't really gather how much this was until I took a look at it with an analogy of toothpicks. So imagine in your right hand that somebody is handing you a toothpick, and you hold it, and then they hand you another one. And let's just say for a moment that they're handing you 134 toothpicks. Now and you can imagine holding those in your right hand, right? Sure you can. Now imagine that they're handing you 134 toothpicks per second. So you can grab 134 toothpicks per second, and you can hold them in your right hand. But now imagine that they're handing you 2 million toothpicks per second. I can't even fathom that. And imagine of those 2 million toothpicks, you have to grab 134 of those toothpicks and put them into your other hand. So of the 2 million bits of information per second that we receive through all of our channels, only about 134 of them are capable of being processed by the brain. Now, the brain is an information processing unit. It processes the information that comes in. It takes the information and makes it into an internal representation. And the internal representation, as we mentioned, is made up of V, A, K, O, G, and AD. Now, in order to handle the 134 bits per second of information, you'll see underneath the 134 BPS, it says that there are 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. So we tend to take that 134 bits of information and we tend to group it or chunk it, and that's what the word chunk means, by the way. It means just simply a group of information. It's a chunk of information. We tend to group that into 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. And essentially, we tend to group it then in manageable levels of information. 7 is a very magic number for the human nervous system. Most people can't remember more than 7 of any product category, for example. This is a known fact in marketing. And so the top 7 brands in marketing, most people can't remember any more beyond that. Most people actually can remember 1 or 2. And so the 7 plus or minus 2 chunks are simply groups of information that we can handle consciously. Now, the reason why perception is projection, if you can imagine this, is that the perceptions that we hold are deleted, distorted, and generalized very greatly from the 2 million bits of information per second all the way down to 134, and then some of those 134 are grouped into 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. So we tend to leave out a lot of information. James Glick in the book Chaos originally said, and this was written quite a while back now, Glick in the book Chaos said that the human nervous system cannot attend to things which are outside the realm of its experience. And he essentially said the universe is probably a lot more chaotic than we think it is, but that the human nervous system is designed to impose order upon the chaos. To put it another way, from an NLP point of view, the human nervous system is designed to recognize patterns that exist among the content of the information. Okay, now let's go back to why perception is projection. Think about this. You're leaving out so much information from what you see, hear, and feel, taste and smell, and the self-talk. You're leaving out so much information that it's not even possible for you to fully attend to every bit of information that comes to you. So perception as projection is really a fact. It's not possible for you to attend to anything that you're not capable of attending to. And so we leave out a lot of information. You can actually tell how you're doing with regards to the cause and effect by looking at the people around you. And I'm not the first person to point this out. Carl Jung, I think, summed it up very nicely. He said, what we tend to do is we tend to marry our unconscious mind and then project out onto her all of our unresolved stuff. And of course, there are people in your life, and the way we project onto people is we project onto total strangers, and we say, and I'm sure, by the way, when we say perception is projection, there are some people, of course, that you can accept this as being possible. There are people you can certainly accept, well, I can accept that person, Tad, yes, and I can accept that person, yes, I can accept that person, Tad, and I can accept that person, but this other person, no way that's me. And of course, the fact is that that is the person that is most likely you. And so what we do is we leave out information. What Jung said, he said something very telling. He said, the information which is most unconscious in us, we by need must project it out onto someone around us. We must by need project it out onto people and events around us. So the fact is that we really can't see anything other than who we are. Now think of this in terms of your own personal clients and in terms of your own personal beliefs. From an NLP point of view, what this means is that the better our belief system is, personally, the better results we'll get with clients. In other words, if I fully believe that a client comes to me and we can together totally transform that client, that's my belief anyway. If I have a belief in a client that that client can totally transform, that client's going to get way, way better results than if I don't believe it. Now, of course, my beliefs about clients are unlimited because I've seen clients do absolutely incredible, incredible things. I've seen clients do things that just floored me in terms of their ability to transform and their ability to change. I've seen clients make absolutely phenomenal changes, heal diseases that looked absolutely terrible, to totally let go of past trauma and past psychological issues, and to totally transform themselves. And I've seen clients do this on a regular basis so often now that it's become part of my personal belief system. It's become part of my personal belief system such that I expect it now of a client. Now, here's the thing. Your client will not actualize what you do not believe to be true. Now, again, I'm not the first person to point this out. I think one of the first people to talk about it was George Estabrook in the book Hypnotism in 1943, and Andre Weitzenhofer in 1957 also talked a little bit about that. And what these two gentlemen said essentially is that your beliefs limit the effects which you can produce with your clients. Now, there's some studies on this. There was a study done in a school system where they put the kids in a school system and they told the teacher, these kids are, I'm sorry, there's no special ed teacher available. These kids are quite retarded, and you'll have to struggle to keep up with them. And the teacher did the best she could, and they all got C's and D's. Then the next semester, they took the same group of kids and put them into another classroom with another teacher. And they told the teacher, these kids are brilliant. You're going to have to struggle to keep up with them. They're so brilliant, and we don't have a special ed teacher available for them, so you'll just have to do the best you can. And the second semester, they all got A's and B's. So the belief that the teacher had projected onto the students that she worked with caused the students to perform differently. Now, this is especially true in NLP, it's especially true in timeline therapy, and it's especially true in hypnosis. One of the reasons I think why it would be a good idea for you to come and take the accelerated NLP practitioner training, if you weren't thinking of it already, is because at that point we can really transform your beliefs and you can have an experience of every single one of the techniques that we're going to cover during this series of programs, that you can have an experience of each one of those techniques working. And that's really important. My job during a training and on this tape set is to transform your beliefs. And you see, I'm so convinced that this absolutely works, but you need to be convinced. Your clients will need to have that belief installed in you, because if it is, then you'll get tremendous results. If it isn't, then you probably ought to refer your clients out. In fact, I believe if you can't look at a client, whether you're doing business consulting or whether you're doing educational consulting or whether you're doing therapy, if you can't look across at a client and really see that client as a being of light and really say to yourself, this client's magnificent, I know they can change, there's only a little bit we need to do, and this person's going to totally get it, and they'll be totally great. If you can't look across at your client and see them as a being of light and see that transformation occurring, you probably ought to refer them out to someone else. Because your beliefs will limit them. Your beliefs will also empower them. And I think it was Weizenhofer who said, the client in hypnosis possesses an almost uncanny capability, as if to be able to read the hypnotherapist's mind. Whoa. Now, obviously, the client really can't read the hypnotherapist's mind, but your congruency. Now, think about this for a moment. Your congruency in speaking the words that you speak, your tone of voice, your certainty in terms of the producing of the results is going to make a difference as to whether or not the clients will produce the results that you do. And here's the thing. We've learned this over the years, that perception is projection. And I don't know, if you've done telephone sales, you probably have experienced this before. In fact, that's why telephone salespeople are so good, or they get out of the business. Telephone sales is really a unique system, because what it does is it totally puts you up against your own stuff. In fact, one time I ran a phone room, and one of our best salesperson was a guy named Jake. And Jake was really a good guy, and Jake, I think, weighed about 260, 300 pounds. And Jake could come in the morning, and most mornings Jake could come in and hop on the phones, but one morning Jake came in, and I walked up to the phone room, and Jake was just sitting there, staring at the wall. Then he got up and walked around a little bit, and finally I said, Jake, what's up? And he said, boss, my head's not in the right place. And I said, yeah, but all you got to do is get on the phone and make sales. You always make sales. He said, nope, I always make sure my head's in the right place. Now, this was before NLP, and we didn't know what Jake was doing. We all thought, well, Jake's a little crazy, but boy, the guy can sure make sales. But what Jake did was Jake made sure that his head was in the right place, meaning that he made sure that he had in his own internal thinking a positive attitude, that he had a positive internal representation of the outcome, that his pictures that he was holding in his mind were positive, that the state that he was in was a state of excellence, a physiology of excellence, to where he totally believed that he could do it. And he was totally congruent. And then when he got on the phone, his behavior would reflect that. Jake changed the thinking inside himself, and he changed himself on a daily basis. Because I'll tell you what, I don't think Jake did much else than that. But he was sure good on the phones. He was really, really good on the phones. And the fact is that Jake really produced results, because he learned one of the first things that a telephone salesperson has to learn. And what a telephone salesperson has to learn is that it's all inside you. Okay, our next theme. What's our next theme? Our next theme is about neurotransmitter, if you look at slide number 9. But I have to admit something before we actually talk about this slide. I have to tell you that my mother still doesn't know what I do. Isn't that funny? And she says to me, Tad, what do you do these days? Well, I say, Mom, I'm a master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming, and I go all around the world and teach seminars and transform people. And she says, what? And I say, neuro-linguistic programming. And she goes, neuro-linguistic. And then sometimes in desperation, I say the H word. I say, well, Mom, that's almost like hypnosis. And then a flicker of recognition comes over her mind and she says, hypnosis. Well, that's just in your mind, isn't it? Well, the fact is, if someone says that all that mind stuff is just in your mind, you can thank them. This is big news for those of us in NLP. This is really big news. This issue of neurotransmitter, and I want to talk about it for a moment, but I want to talk about it with my excitement of it. Because the fact is, in 1986, Deepak Chopra wrote a book called Quantum Healing. And we sort of missed it in 1986, but in 1986, Chopra said that neurotransmitter touches every single cell in the human body. Now, that was exciting. In fact, Chopra in 1986 said the immune system constantly eavesdrops on your internal dialogue because of the ability of the neurotransmitter to affect every single cell in the body. Now, I'm excited about that because you have to understand that this is the mind-body connection. So let me explain to you how a neuron works. And this is just a real simple, simplistic sort of diagram of a neuron. And we tried to simplify it to make it really easy to understand. If you look at the diagram of the neuron on slide number 9, the information begins on the left-hand side where it says information electric. And the information in that sine wave, that wave, sort of comes down the left neuron, going up and down like that along the left neuron. And then it hits the synaptic gap. And those little dots between the synaptic gap that you can see there are neurotransmitter. Now, the neurotransmitter then go across the synaptic gap, and when the other neurotransmitter hits the edge of the synaptic gap and is picked up by the uptake molecules on the other side, then there's another wave of electricity that comes up the other side and goes up the other neuron. Now, when they first discovered neurons, they thought they were just in the brain, and in 1957, a guy named Penfield drilled a hole in a woman's head. He was probing her brain with an electrode, and he attempted to find out if he could cure her epilepsy, in fact. But he also found out the seat of memory because he touched one of her neurons, or he thought he had found the seat of memory because he touched one of her neurons, and in the spark that went across the synaptic gap, he found that she remembered everything from a birthday party when she was age 2. And this was written up in the Penfield study in 1957. In 1957, Penfield discovered that this woman remembered everything from a birthday party when she was 2. She could remember the smell of the birthday cake, the feel of the crinoline in her dress, her parents. She could see her parents the way they looked when she was 2, and all of her friends when she was 2. She had a very, very clear memory of that birthday party, a very, very clear, succinct memory, totally of the birthday party. And so in 1957, Penfield postulated that everything that happens to you is stored in your brain. Well, then the rat doctors got busy, and the rat doctors began to cut up rats. And as they cut up the rats, they were taking out portions of the rat's brain. But what they found was, even if they took out the entire brain, but not the brainstem, that the rat could still run the maze. And so they postulated in 1960, actually Carl Pribram at Stanford University postulated in 1960 that memory is stored holographically throughout the body. Now, so this neurotransmitter that generally now goes between every single cell, every single synaptic gap on every single neuron in the body, now is found to be roaming through and being able to touch every single cell in your body. The fact is that this is the mind-body connection. The issue of neurotransmitter is where the mind affects the body. So no longer is it necessary to say, well, that's just in your mind. Because the fact is that they found neurotransmitter everywhere in the human body. It's not just in the brain, it's not just in the nervous system, but it actually is available to affect every single cell in the body. And that means whether you're awake or asleep, whether you're happy or sad, whether you're present listening to me or whether you're daydreaming, whether you're driving a car or looking around or actually not doing anything, everything that goes on in your mind is capable of being transmitted at any moment to the cells and to every single cell in your body. Now that's interesting. That's really, really interesting. Because what it means is that this is the mind-body connection. And when science wakes up to the fact that this is the mind-body connection, when medicine totally realizes that the mind-body connection exists here, we're going to have so many people coming to take NLP trainings and hypnosis trainings and timeline therapy trainings, it isn't even going to be funny. In fact, we're going to need lots more trainers to take care of that. So the issue of neurotransmitter is very exciting to me. And what it says is that every single cell in your body is continually being affected by the neurotransmitter that is between the synaptic gap and also that now roams free and is able to touch every single cell in the body. So that notion of neurotransmitter is very, very, very important because what it does is it gives us the mind-body connection. Okay, let's talk about whose responsibility is it for change. And I think this is also an important issue in neurolinguistic programming as well as hypnosis. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm intimately involved with the American Board of Hypnotherapy. I'm the executive director, and I attend the convention every February, which is held in Costa Mesa, California generally, which is in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles. And each year, I think it's now my karma or something to run into an old-time hypnotherapist. And these guys come up to me and they go, "Ted?" I go, "Yes, sir." And they go, "I can't be hypnotized." And I go, "Really?" In my mind, I say, "Poor thing." Think about it for just a minute. Let's look at slide number 10. If I were to say to you, close the eyes and relax the muscles around the eyes so they're so relaxed you can't relax them anymore, and then holding on to the relaxation, test them and make sure you can't open them. Now, I'm not saying that. But if I were to, and by the way, if you're driving, be very careful about this section here. So I'm not saying this, but listen. If I were to say to you, close the eyes, who would have to close the eyes? Well, you would, of course. And if I were to say, relax the muscles around the eyes, who would do that? Right, you would. And so they're so relaxed you can't relax them anymore. Who would do that? Yes, you would. And who'd hold on to the relaxation? Again, you would. And then you test them to make sure you couldn't open them, right? Right. Now, let's just say that I said all of that. Whose responsibility is it to do it? It's yours, of course. So the fact is that if you say you can't be hypnotized, that's essentially saying, and this is funny, that's essentially saying that you can't follow directions. Now just imagine if I were to walk up into a business setting and I were to walk into a business and I would say to the business owner, "Hi, I'm Tad James, and by the way, I'd like to work for you for a while, and by the way, I can't follow instructions." Do you think I'd get hired? Probably not. So the fact is that hypnosis, and NLP for that matter, is really about following directions. For example, if we're going to do a swish pattern, and I'm going to say to you, okay, now take the present state and have it be big and bright on the screen and have the desired state in the lower left-hand corner. And in a moment, I'm going to have it explode big and bright so it covers up the present state and the desired state becomes full and bright and explodes on the whole screen so you can see it clearly and have it just come up like this. Whoosh. Now, who does that? Well, of course, the person who does that is the client, of course. The client has to follow instructions in timeline therapy. The client has to follow the instructions in neurolinguistic programming. So the fact is the client is the one that actually has to follow instructions. Although we want to change our internal representations, and we want to change our internal representations so that we project onto our clients total success, I also want you to remember that your client is the one that needs to create the change himself or herself in the process of doing neurolinguistic programming or timeline therapy or hypnosis for that matter. In fact, let's, just between you and me, let's jump over to slide number 12. Let's together reinvent NLP. Why don't we, huh? Let's reinvent NLP together. Let's talk about this for just a second. I think if you think that NLP is a do-with process, that it's going to produce much better results than if you think it's a do-to process. Now, I know many people listening to this tape set have come to NLP because you think you can wield some power over someone else. But the fact is that NLP works way better if you hold in your mind that it's a do-with process rather than a do-to process. A do-to process implies that you have some sort of power over someone. And you say to them, I'm going to do NLP to you, or I'm going to do NLP on you. Well, the fact is, in our little branch of NLP, we really believe strongly in the process of rapport. We strongly believe that it really works for you to get into rapport with your clients because the results will be so much better. So I'd like to reinvent NLP if I could, and I'd like to reinvent it this way. If you think of an induction, what the word induction means, as in trance induction or as in hypnotic induction that we might do at the end of some of our sessions on this particular set of programs. If I had a coil, and by the way, this is the best I can do with PowerPoint. If I had a coil, and there's one coil on the left, and that's a diagram of the coil on the left, and there's some AC current coming into the coil. And then I have a coil on the right, and they're both copper. That if I run the current through the first coil on the left, it will induce a current on the coil of the right. And the reason why it induces a current in the coil on the right is because the coil and both coils are the same. They essentially seem to be the same to each other, which is the basis of rapport. So I would like to suggest that NLP and hypnosis is the induction of a profound change in the state of consciousness of a client through a cooperative flow of energy and information. And through a cooperative flow of energy and information and ideas is really, really important. That if you treat the client with love and respect and you get into rapport with the client, that your results will be infinitely better than if you try to shove NLP down their throat or if you use it as a one-upsmanship or you use it in a way which puts the other person down. So I would really fully encourage you to make sure that as you do this NLP processes, any of the NLP processes or any of the techniques that you're going to learn on this tape set, that you remember that it's a do-with process. It's something where you have rapport. And now the final piece is, and this is really interesting, if my copper coil on the left has 5 winds and my copper coil on the right has 10 winds, then I will get back twice as much voltage or twice as much that comes out the other side as what I put in. That's really exciting too, because that means that if I put in a sufficient amount of rapport, to carry the metaphor one step further into NLP, if I put in a sufficient amount of rapport, I will certainly get magnificent results out the other end. Okay, let's talk for a moment about value, and I think this is also important. And I want to talk about it from another point of view. And this is the point of view of what kind of value do you get for the money that you spend? When you go out and buy a blender, I've had people who bought a blender and they told me, I didn't get value from this blender. I didn't like the blender. I didn't get value from it. I've actually had people who bought a car tell me they didn't get value from the car. They bought a car and they didn't get value from it. I have people who've told me they go out to dinner and they didn't get value from the dinner. Now, obviously they ate the food, but they still didn't get a value from the dinner. And I've had people go out and purchase a service and tell me they didn't get value from that. Now, the way most people spend money, and if you've seen me do this at A Secret of Creating Your Future, or if you will see me do this at the practitioner training, but the way most people spend money is they take $1 out of their pocket, and then they owe this person $1, so they go, oh, all right, take it. Here, take the $1, doggone it, just take it. And they slap the $1 down on the table. And that sort of attitude when you spend money actually metaphysically stops the flow of energy of the money coming to you. If you spend money and prosper the other person, if you give it to them and say, here, thank you for the work that you've done. We really, really appreciate the work that you've done. Thank you for that. And the same thing is true when you take a training or when you listen to a tape set. I go and take several trainings every year. In fact, we just finished a training that we took in one of our advanced training courses. And the fact is that we purchase trainings on a regular basis. We do this because every single training that we take, we get value from. And I love to go to trainings. I love to take the training, and I love to continue to learn and get value from learning. I really get value from learning and going through and learning new things and learning how to use them. But the fact is that the value that I get depends on me. I think that if I sufficiently pay attention, that I'll find something valuable in just about everything that I purchase and everything that I do. But I also remember that the value depends on me. Okay, let's talk about our next theme. Our next theme is excellence, and for this we can turn to page 3 of the slide pages in the back of the book and slide number 13. The next theme is excellence, and I think excellence is a real important issue. Excellence is a very, very, very important issue. Why is excellence an important issue? Because I think today, in many areas, people are not as excellent as they could be. You're not listening to this tape set because I just managed to pass my NLP training. I think if you come to the NLP practitioner training, the accelerated NLP practitioner training, you'll find that you move to a whole new level of excellence. And I would encourage you, as you listen to this tape set, as you listen to these programs, I would encourage you to be very, very sure that you want to move to that level of excellence and pay attention to what is it that makes you excellent, rather than just getting by. I mean, if you came to a brain surgeon and he said, "Hi, I'm a brain surgeon and I just managed to pass, yikes, my NLP, or I just managed to pass brain surgery. I got a C minus." I'd be a little nervous about that, wouldn't you? So what you really want is you really want someone who is in that level of excellence, which is way out on the right-hand side of the bell curve on slide number 13. So really, really, really pay attention to that, would you please? All right. Now, the next thing I think we want to do is we want to look at page 5. Page 5. And if you look at page 5, I want to take just for a moment and put this Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training series in perspective of all the other trainings that we offer at Advanced Neurodynamics. I think this is important, and I think it's also important for you to understand that as you listen to this tape program is designed to go in conjunction with attending the training, which is at level number 1 of the right-hand side of this diagram. The Secret of Creating Your Future is our introductory seminar, and if you haven't attended one, it's everything that you want to know about how do you create your future. It's a fun, lively seminar. It's done on 2 days, and we do it all over the world, and I'd encourage you to go to one of those. The Accelerated NLP Practitioner Training is the first level, and this particular product, this particular tape set, is designed to go along with that. We do not cover everything in NLP in this program, but we cover everything you need to know to attend the practitioner training. I think that's really important. So this is about half the information, roughly. The next level of training is the Master Practitioner Training, and that's 15 days. We do the NLP Master Practitioner Training for 15 days, generally 15 days straight. There's a day off in the middle, so the total amount of time is 16 days. At the NLP Master Practitioner Training, we go on with the rest of the body of knowledge of NLP. The rest of the body of knowledge of NLP was very exciting to me because it allowed me to learn how to do conversational change, how to make changes with people in their values, how to work with values. And a lot of what we talk about in values is in the Master Practitioner Training. How to work with meta-programs and how to do a personality profiling system very simply and easily. The NLP Master Practitioner Training also includes a sleight of mouth pattern, which are 15 elegant reframes. Sleight of mouth patterns, which are 15 elegant reframes, which allow you to answer objections easily and effortlessly, actually to create your own answers to the objections. In addition, we also go through an introduction to performance skills. We share with you, and obviously it's not a trainer's training, but we share with you the basics of performance, how to do presentations, how to do a presentation to make it understandable, easily understandable, and how do you utilize naturally occurring states in the audience to work with them and to make changes in the audience in that way. The Master Practitioner Training, if you attend one of our Master Practitioner Trainings, also includes Master Timeline Therapy and Master Hypnosis. Level 3 is the Trainer's Training and Evaluation, and that takes 16 days, 12 days for the Trainer's Training and 4 days for the evaluation. The NLP Trainer's level is a very, very rewarding level to be on. Personally, as an NLP trainer, I've trained hundreds and hundreds of people in how to do NLP, and it's a very rewarding life. It really is exciting, and it's something which is encouraging to me, and I really like doing. If you enjoy transforming people, to me, there's no better way to go. And I would encourage you, if you've ever thought about doing something like that, to join us for that training. Part of learning is assisting, and we also have a very lively assistance program at Advanced Neurodynamics, where you can actually come back and assist at any one of our trainings and learn the whole training from a deeper level. I think as one becomes a trainer, it's usually useful to know the behind-the-scenes information of what goes on at a training, and that's a fun way to learn how to do that. And then finally, level 4 is our Master Trainers Development Program. Our Master Trainers Development Program is excellent because what our intention is to take you and to move you to the level that you need to be at to be a most excellent master trainer. So there's coaching and also ongoing classes, and you come and assist at the trainers training and deepen your knowledge of how to be an NLP trainer. We're a full-service company. We offer trainings all the way from the practitioner level all the way to master trainer. And we're one of the few companies in the world that has trainings going all the way to the top level of neuro-linguistic programming. In addition, and some of you may know that I also have a real interest in the science of Huna. And Huna is a very exciting, very ancient series of techniques that come from Hawaii. As you may know or may not know, I've been trained extensively in this, and we teach Huna in 4 levels also. I think probably if I had to sum up Huna in just a few words, and I think probably that's the best way to do it. If I were to sum up Huna in just a few words, I think I would say, no luna e kahali kai o kama'aleva na naka maka ea mawani nui kali huala. Oh, that's Hawaiian. And what that means is that you are essentially a being of light, and that you come from the light. You essentially came from the light in the beginning, and you will return to the light in the end, and that you are a being of light. Huna believes that no matter who you are, no matter who you think you are, you're more than that. And so we look at the rest of who you are as a being in the Huna trainings. NLP is very good at knowing who I am as a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, and Huna brings the rest of the person into light. It brings the rest of the person into light as to who I am as a spiritual being, and who I am as, and what's my relationship to the rest of the universe. And so that's what Huna is all about. So to put this training that you're about to attend into perspective, it's level 1 of our NLP series, and our NLP series essentially has 4 levels that you can attend. Okay, now with that, let's move on and talk about our certification standards. And for this, what I'd like you to do is turn to the notebook, page 95 in the back of the notebook. So if you would, go ahead and turn to page 95. And these are the certification standards of the American Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. The American Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming is currently the only membership body in the United States for neuro-linguistic programming for anyone who's been trained by anyone to join and become a member. And our training is approved by the American Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and we certify through them. So the National Board of NLP, the American Board of NLP, at the practitioner level, which is on page 95, requires a minimum of 120 hours of training in the basics of NLP patterns taught by a certified trainer or a certified master practitioner under the supervision of a trainer. And they require that you are able to demonstrate the ability to identify the following basic skills, techniques, patterns, and concepts of NLP, and to utilize them competently with self and others. 1, the behavioral integration of the basic presuppositions of NLP, including outcome orientation with respect to others' models of the world, distinction between the map and the territory, there is no failure, only feedback, the meaning of communication is the response you get, the adaptive intent of all behavior, everyone has the necessary resources to succeed, resistance is a signal of insufficient pacing, and the law of requisite variety. Now, what we do with each of these particular NLP presuppositions is we suggest that you take a look at them, that you, in essence, accept them, and that you adopt them as useful beliefs that you have while you're doing NLP. If you choose to come to the practitioner training, it's not so much that we actually look for them, as we may notice their absence. So if they're not present, or if you don't have that particular belief, we may simply ask you to adopt it. Number 2, the ability to establish and maintain rapport. And all of the techniques that we're talking about now, from number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all the way through number 22 in the NLP practitioner level, are covered adequately at the practitioner training that you're going to attend. So we'll learn how to establish rapport. You need to learn how to do pacing and leading, which are 2 techniques of rapport. You need to do calibration to be able to look at a person and notice what you're getting, whether or not you're getting the kind of results you want or the kind of results you don't want. And that's calibration. And also to be able to describe what you see in sensory-based language, which is, well, I saw her lip turn upward, rather than saying she smiled. Number 5, representational systems, predicates and accessing cues. Number 6, the meta model. And number 7, the Milton model. Number 8, elicitation of well-formed ecological outcomes and structures of the present state. Number 9, overlap and translation. Number 10 is metaphor creation. How do you create a metaphor? And we'll cover that. Number 11, frames, the contrast frame, the relevancy frame, as-if frame, backtracking. Number 12, anchoring, either in visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Number 13, and anchoring techniques which are contextualized to the field of application. Number 14, the ability to shift consciousness to external or internal as required by the moment's task. Number 16, dissociation and association. Number 16, chunking. Number 17, submodalities. Number 18, verbal and nonverbal elicitation of responses. Number 19, the accessing and building of resources. Number 20, reframing. Number 21, strategies, detection, elicitation, utilization, and installation. And number 22, demonstration of behavioral flexibility. Actually, in future tapes, we're going to cover each one of those. In fact, let's talk about what we'll be covering in each of the future tapes. And because these are really exciting tapes. I've already created them, and I'm really excited about what you're about to get to. So let's talk about them. In the next tape, which is tape number 2, we're going to look at how do you set goals and what are the principles for success. How do you set goals to create them working for you? How do you set goals so that they actually produce the kind of results that you want them to produce? The next is in program number 3, we'll look at the presuppositions of NLP and the prime directives of the unconscious mind, both of which are very, very important in terms of producing results, and they provide a really solid belief system or a solid belief basis for you as you go through and do your NLP. Program number 4 is sensory acuity and rapport, and how do you really look at people and see things you've never seen before, and then how do you get into rapport with them. Program number 5 includes rep systems and predicates, a lot about matching and mirroring and being able to deepen that rapport, the capability of rapport that you've just learned. Program number 6 is all about submodalities, and we'll learn about drivers and universals, and we'll learn a swish pattern, we'll learn a belief change, and we'll discover how to shift things, how to make shifts at the unconscious level, and be able to create changes for ourselves and others. Program number 7 is all about language. We'll begin our language and talk about presuppositions, and how do you presuppose, or how do you assume things in the sentences that you're using to create the kinds of change you want. We'll talk about controlling your own personal level of abstraction to specificity, which is called the hierarchy of ideas. In program number 8, we'll look at the Milton model and the meta model. Two ends of the spectrum, the Milton model being very abstract, the meta model being very specific, and how do we use both and what direction do we move people in. Program number 9 is all about anchoring, and we'll talk about collapsing anchors and chaining anchors, and we'll also look at some of the little used techniques in NLP. The little used techniques in NLP that perhaps you may want to look at, and we'll also talk about that. Program number 10 is all about strategies. It's an introduction to strategy, and we'll learn how to elicit strategies and even some examples of how to do this. And we'll actually have an opportunity to notice how do we elicit strategies, and especially the motivation strategy, the reassurance strategy, and even some love strategies. Program number 11, we'll talk about the design and installation of strategies. We'll talk about spelling strategies, dyslexia, and we'll talk about working with attention deficit disorder and the learning state. Program number 12 is reframing. And we'll learn meaning reframes and context reframes and the 6-step reframe. And then we'll go on and learn the NLP Model of Therapy. In program number 13, we'll learn how to do a parts integration with a demonstration of that, and we'll hear how to do VK dissociation, which is technically not a reframing, but it's more in the therapeutic applications, and so we put it at that point. Program number 14 is about timeline therapy. It's our first program on timeline therapy. We'll learn how to elicit the timeline and how to discover the root cause, and we'll learn how to work with negative emotions number 1. In program number 15, we'll learn about timeline therapy and how to let go of negative emotions. We'll learn about creating your future and how to put something in your future. We'll also learn how to let go of a phobia, and we'll talk a little bit about couple therapy. How do you work with people in group or with a couple of people, and how do you integrate their relationship and make it work better? Program number 16, the 5-step sales process, and program number 17, the 5-step sales process. We'll talk about how to use NLP in selling. Program number 18 is really exciting to me because it's an integration program. We'll show you how to use NLP in business and education and therapy, and we'll talk about some specifics. In program number 19, will elicit your timeline, and will also take a journey on the timeline designed to integrate all the things that you've learned. Let me talk for a moment about program number 19, because I think that's real important. I would like to see you, as you go through these tapes, if you would, and if you have the time, to listen to program number 19, especially the journey on the timeline for learning. I'd like you to do that after every tape or after every other tape, if you possibly could. So if you listen to it at least 5 times during the 20 sessions, or at least maybe even 10 times during the 20 tape programs that you listen to, that would be really exciting, and it would integrate all of the NLP material. So that's a program that's an induction. It's probably not a good idea to listen to number 19 when you're driving a car. In fact, I would avoid that, but I'd make very sure that I listen to it at other times. And then program 20 is simply the conclusion. So that's what we're doing. And this is a really exciting program set. I would really encourage you to listen, and I think the best way to listen is to imagine that I'm speaking to you personally. That's what I want to do. Imagine I'm speaking to you personally, and I'm your personal guide as we together go through the excitement of NLP. Because I'm really excited about this technology, and I would encourage you to use this series to discover how to make changes for yourself and make your life better. That's what it's all about. So come and join us for these programs, and let us transform your life. This is the end of program number 1. Come and join us for number 2, which follows next.